When parents love unequally. Have you ever sat quietly in your living room, watching your children laugh, argue, or go about their lives and wondered, did I treat them all the same? Or perhaps, now in your older years, you've begun to notice the silence of one child more than the affection of another, and deep in your heart, a small, painful question rises. Did I hurt them without meaning to? This video is not meant to judge, accuse, or stir guilt. It is a soft reflection, a compassionate look into one of the most common, yet most denied realities in family life. When parents, often unconsciously, love their children unequally. It's a tender subject, one that many elders will instantly reject. I love all my children the same. I was always fair. I did what I thought was right. And maybe that's true. But if even one child carries a quiet ache in their chest, if even one sibling has walked away from family gatherings feeling invisible, then it's worth looking again, with softer eyes, with more wisdom, and with the courage that comes only with age. Today, I invite you to stay with me through the end of this message, because whether you are a parent, a grandparent, or simply someone reflecting on your own childhood, what we're about to uncover may bring peace to a place in your heart that's been unsettled for decades. So please, take a deep breath. Set aside the instinct to defend or deny, and instead, join me in gently exploring the emotional truths behind parental favoritism, why it happens, how it hurts, and what we can still do to heal it. And if this video speaks to you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and stay until the end, because what we're about to share may be one of the most important reflections of your later years. 1. The silent wound of unequal love. There's a kind of wound that doesn't bleed. It doesn't bruise. It doesn't swell. But it lives quietly under the surface of many adult lives, especially as they look back at childhood with older, wiser eyes. It's the wound of being the less loved child. Not unloved. Not abandoned. But quietly, consistently, overlooked. And it often begins with something as simple as a pattern. One child is praised more often. The other is disciplined more harshly. One receives gifts, affection, attention, and the benefit of the doubt. The other receives expectations, silence, or worse, rejection disguised as discipline. You see, most parents don't set out to hurt their children. They don't sit in secret deciding, I will love this one more than that one. It doesn't happen with malice. It happens with familiarity, with comfort, with unconscious bias rooted in personality, temperament, or even birth order. Let me tell you about a woman I met during my years working with aging families. Her name was Ruth. Ruth was 76 when she came to me for counseling. She looked elegant pressed blouse, pearl earrings, silver hair carefully pinned. But her voice trembled when she said, I think I broke my son without meaning to. I asked her to tell me what she meant. She had 2 children, Michael and Eva. Michael was the firstborn, strong-willed, independent, quiet. Eva was younger, bubbly, affectionate, always eager to please. From the beginning, Ruth found it easier to connect with Eva. She reminded me of myself, Ruth admitted. She was soft, open. Michael was difficult. I thought I was helping him by being strict. Throughout their childhood, Ruth had naturally turned to Eva for comfort, for company, for joy. Michael, she believed, didn't need it as much. Birthdays came and went, Eva's were parties. Michael's were practical. Eva was praised for small accomplishments. Michael's achievements were met with silence or critique. When Eva failed, Ruth offered comfort. When Michael failed, Ruth offered silence and tough love. He needed to be strong, she said. He was a boy. Decades passed. Eva called every day. Michael barely spoke to her. When Ruth's husband passed, Eva flew in, organized everything, held her mother at night. Michael came, stood at the back of the service, and left. I saw it in his eyes. Ruth whispered to me. All the years he tried to earn my attention. And all the years I didn't see it. What broke Ruth's heart most was not what she did but what she missed. The hugs she didn't return. The report cards she didn't hang on the fridge. The questions she didn't ask. Now, in her late 70s, Ruth found herself haunted not by guilt but by grief. Grief for the son she could no longer reach. That's the tragedy of favoritism. It's not always loud. It doesn't always look like abuse. Sometimes it looks like quiet neglect. Like a parent unconsciously holding one child's hand and letting the other walk alone. And here's the hardest part. When we don't talk about it, when we don't acknowledge it, we allow it to echo into the next generation. Siblings grow up resenting one another. The favored child feels pressure to stay perfect. The forgotten child often drifts detached, bitter, or overly self-reliant to hide the pain. And by the time parents realize the imbalance, the damage is often done. But here's the good news. Even in later life, repair is still possible. It begins with acknowledgement. With a conversation that doesn't start with "I treated you all the same," but with "Help me understand how you felt growing up." Because when an adult child finally hears their pain named by the very person who caused it, even unintentionally, something powerful happens. The wound, once ignored, begins to close. I've seen this healing. I've witnessed 80-year-old mothers whisper, "I'm sorry," and watch 50-year-old sons break down in tears. Not because of anger, but because finally someone saw their pain. You see, parental favoritism is not just a childhood problem. It's a family system issue. And as we age, the family system either becomes a source of unity or fracture. If you're a parent watching this and you see parts of yourself in Ruth, if you've sensed one child drifting while another clings too tightly, if you feel the weight of unspoken resentment in family gatherings, don't wait for time to fix it. Time alone does not heal wounds. But honesty does. Humility does. Listening deep, open, non-defensive listening does. And if you're the child who is left behind, the one always in the shadow, know this. You are not wrong for feeling what you feel. You are not less worthy because you are less seen. Your pain is valid. And your healing does not depend on your parents' confession. It begins with you naming the truth. I was hurt. And it mattered. Favoritism may be common, but it is not harmless. It reshapes entire lives, alters destinies, and leaves scars invisible to the naked eye. But scars, too, are proof that we've healed. And healing, at any age, is still possible when love becomes conscious and equal. In the next message, we'll explore how favoritism impacts siblings, the invisible war that often lasts into adulthood. But for now, I invite you to sit with this. Is there someone in your life who still carries this wound? And if so, what could one honest conversation change? Stay with me. This story isn't finished yet. 2. When siblings become strangers. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from distance. You see it at family reunions when siblings sit apart, making polite conversation but never quite meeting each other's eyes. You see it in the way one avoids phone calls, or how another rushes out before dessert is served at Thanksgiving. You hear it in the awkward pauses when someone mentions mom or dad and suddenly the room feels colder. This is the invisible legacy of favoritism. Not just the wound between parent and child, but the fracture between brothers and sisters who were once best friends. I want to share with you a story I've never forgotten about two sisters named Carla and Diane. Carla was the eldest, quiet and studious. She helped raise Diane when their mother went back to work. She cooked, she cleaned, she even missed her high school graduation to take Diane to the doctor during a bad flu. She never complained. She believed, like many firstborns, that being responsible was simply part of love. Diane, on the other hand, was vibrant and spontaneous. She lit up a room with her presence. She was their mother's favorite, though no one said it out loud. She received more praise, more protection, more forgiveness. When Diane totaled her first car, her mother said, "It's just a car." When Carla got a B+ instead of an A, her mother asked, "What happened?" By the time they were adults, the pattern had hardened. Carla became the capable one. She helped with bills. She managed the estate. She took their mother to doctor appointments, often rearranging her entire life to do so. Diane was the free spirit. She dropped in with flowers and charm, and their mother would beam. But when it came to real work, she was always too busy, too overwhelmed, too far away. Over the years, resentment grew. Carla felt used. Diane felt misunderstood. And both felt unloved in their own way. When their mother passed, Carla handled the funeral, the paperwork, the house. Diane delivered the eulogy. People praised her speech. No one mentioned Carla's months of unpaid caregiving. At the will reading, Carla learned that most of the estate had gone to Diane. Not because she needed it. Not because she asked for it. But because, as the lawyer explained, your mother always worried about her more. And that was the final blow. Carla never spoke to Diane again. Now here's what's tragic. They were both wounded, both shaped by the same household, both daughters of the same woman. But favoritism doesn't just create distance, it creates roles. The good one, the needy one, the forgotten one, the reliable one. And those roles, once written, are painfully hard to erase. And what about you? Have you ever looked at your siblings and wondered, why do we feel so far apart? Why do I still carry resentment from decades ago? It might not be about what they did. It might be about what your parents did and never made right. I've worked with families where the oldest son was expected to give, the youngest to receive, and the daughters to remain silent. Where one sibling got the house, and the others got stories. Where one was praised for simply showing up, while the other had to earn love with sacrifice. And here's the part that hurts the most. When parents pass, those wounds don't. Instead of mourning together, siblings often mourn apart. Instead of holding each other, they hold on to blame. Instead of healing, they drift. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I've seen reconciliations that began with a single sentence. I was hurt, but I miss you. Or even, I didn't realize you carried so much alone. If you're a parent listening right now, ask yourself, have I unintentionally set my children against each other? Do I lean on one too heavily? Protect another too much? Do I reward one for being strong while excusing the other's neglect? If so, you are not alone. Many parents repeat patterns they don't even see. But awareness is the first step toward healing. And if you're the sibling who always had to carry more, give more, be more, I want you to hear this. Your worth was never measured by their acknowledgement. You did what you did out of love, perhaps unreciprocated, but never unseen. And if you were the sibling who received more leniency, more attention, more material gifts, know this. That too can feel like a burden. You may carry guilt. You may fear being resented. You may feel you don't deserve what you were given. But here's the truth. Healing doesn't come from erasing the past. It comes from naming it together. It comes from conversations where we say, I didn't know you felt that way. I wish I'd stood up for you. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. The greatest gift siblings can give each other is not agreement. It's grace. The grace to grow. The grace to change. The grace to start again. So if there's someone in your family you've grown distant from, someone whose presence now feels like absence, ask yourself, what would it cost to reach out? And what might it restore? In the next message, we'll explore how favoritism affects grandchildren and how the emotional distance often widens across generations. But for now, reflect gently. What roles were assigned in your family? And are they still defining who you are today? Stay with me. This story is not just about pain. It's about possibility. 3. The grandchild divide when love plays favorites. There's a special joy in becoming a grandparent. For many, it's the reward of old age. The soft voice calling, Grandma, come see this. The small hands tugging at your sleeve. The feeling that, after decades of work, you can finally love without pressure, give without condition, and be cherished simply for being there. But even this joy can be shadowed quietly, gently by the same pattern we've explored, favoritism. And when it comes to grandchildren, it doesn't take much to plant the seeds of division. Let me tell you a story I heard from a woman named Lucille. Lucille was 81 when she told me, I think I made my daughter cry, and I don't even know why. She had 4 grandchildren, 2 from her son, and 2 from her daughter. She adored them all, she claimed. But somehow, the visits, the gifts, the attention, they had leaned in one direction for years. I always believed a son's children were the true continuation of the family, she explained. It was the way I was raised. So, for birthdays, she bought her son's children new bicycles, game systems, extravagant toys. For her daughter's children, she picked up books from the discount bin. She visited her son's house weekly, brought soups, helped with laundry. She told herself, he works long hours, he needs more help. But her daughter worked too. Her daughter had never asked for anything, perhaps that was the difference. Lucille assumed she didn't need it. She mistook silence for strength. And in doing so, she created a quiet wound. Years passed. Her daughter withdrew. The grandkids stopped calling. I didn't realize they noticed, Lucille said softly. I thought children didn't care about those things. But they do. Children, even small ones, are acutely sensitive to being chosen or overlooked. One grandchild told me in session, "Grandma always hugs my cousin first. She calls him her little prince. She doesn't call me anything." That child was 6 years old. And already, they'd learned what it meant to be second. Here's what makes this topic so painful. No grandparent intends to hurt. Most think they're being kind, generous, helpful. They tell themselves, this family needs more, or that child is closer, or even I just connect better with this one. But when the pattern becomes consistent, the damage is real. It teaches some children that they're less worthy. It teaches others that they're more entitled. And it leaves parents, your own children, caught in the middle, unsure whether to speak up or stay silent. Let's be honest. There are old cultural beliefs that still linger. Beliefs that a son's children carry the family name. That boys should be prioritized. That daughters, once married, become part of another family. But in today's world, one shaped by equality, compassion, and emotional awareness, those beliefs are not just outdated. They are harmful. Love should not be measured by gender, bloodline, or family name. It should be measured by presence, by kindness, by fairness. Now, I want to ask you gently, have you ever looked at your grandchildren through the lens of expectation rather than openness? Have you ever felt more attached to the child who looks like you, acts like you, or shares your last name? Have you ever assumed one set of parents needed more help, and in doing so, unintentionally ignored the others? If so, you are not alone. Lucille is not alone. And here's what she did, what you still can do. She called her daughter. She apologized, not in a defensive way, not with excuses, but with humility. She said, "I see it now. And I'm sorry I didn't see it then." Her daughter cried. But not out of anger. Out of relief. Because someone had finally acknowledged the imbalance. Someone had finally named the thing that had hung in the air for years but never been spoken. From that moment, their relationship began to repair. Lucille began rotating her visits. She bought all 4 grandchildren the same Christmas gift. She began to ask, "What do you need?" instead of assuming. And slowly, trust returned. If you are blessed with grandchildren, whether 2 or 20, remember this. They don't care about what you give. They care about how you make them feel. They care that you remember their names, that you look into their eyes when they speak, that you celebrate their small victories, not just the loud ones. And most importantly, that you love them for who they are, not for who they remind you of. Favoritism, when passed from parent to child, can ripple across generations. But so can healing. So take a moment today. Look at your grandchildren not as roles, the good one, the smart one, the one who behaves, but as individuals, each hungry for your love, your attention, your gentle gaze. Love, when offered equally, becomes the legacy that outlasts wealth, outshines inheritance, and outlives the flaws of our youth. In the next message, we'll dive into what happens when parents use inheritance as a tool to reward or punish their children. But for now, ask yourself, is there a grandchild waiting to be seen by you not as part of someone else's family, but as your own? 4. When inheritance becomes a measure of love. It's a scene that plays out quietly in many families, often behind closed doors, often in hushed tones. A parent gathers their adult children. The air is still. Everyone knows what's coming, but no one says it. Then, the words are spoken. We've decided how the estate will be divided. Sometimes, it's fair, simple, graceful, but often, it's not. One child receives the house. Another gets a plot of land. Another is left out completely, with the explanation, "You already have enough." Or worse, "You were never there when I needed you." And just like that, decades of love, sacrifice, and effort become measured in money. Let me tell you the story of a man named Harold. Harold was a father of 3. He and his wife had built a modest life, nothing extravagant, but filled with effort. A small home in the suburbs, 2 rental properties, and a decent savings account built over 40 years of labor. Their eldest daughter, Jean, had stayed nearby. She helped with errands, mowed the lawn when Harold's back gave out, and drove her mother to dialysis twice a week for 3 years. Their son, Thomas, had moved to Texas and called occasionally. He sent birthday cards, visited every other Christmas, and always told his parents he wished he could do more. Their youngest, Melissa, had struggled. Divorced twice, unemployed for years, in and out of emotional crises. She lived with Harold and his wife on and off well into her 40s. When Harold's wife passed away, he began to worry. Who would care for Melissa? Would Thomas resent her? Would Jean feel used? So he made a decision. In his will, he left 70% of the estate to Melissa, 20% to Thomas, and only 10% to Jean. When the will was read, Jean didn't cry. She simply stood up, walked out, and never called her father again. It wasn't about the money. It was about what the money said. That all the nights she cooked dinner, all the hospital runs, all the ways she showed up, didn't count. I wasn't trying to punish her, Harold told me. I just thought she'd understand. But love, when left unspoken, can be misunderstood. And inheritance, when used as a message, can deliver the wrong one. Here's the truth that so many elders learn too late. Children don't remember the dollar amounts. They remember the meaning. They remember who was thanked, who was acknowledged, who was seen. When parents use wills to reward good behavior or to compensate for another child's missteps, they turn love into a transaction. And no one wins. The child who receives the most often carries guilt, burden, and resentment from others. The one who receives the least carries shame, confusion, and hurt. And the one who gets nothing walks away with a silent message. You didn't matter. Now, let me be clear. You have every right to distribute your assets however you choose. You worked for them. You earned them. But know this. The way you give, especially at the end, says more than any words ever could. If one child has sacrificed years for your care, tell them. If another has struggled through life, offer support but with transparency. And if you're planning to divide unevenly, don't do it in silence. Speak. Explain your heart. Not with shame, not with justification, but with honesty. I'm giving more to your brother because I worry about his future. But I want you to know, I've never taken your love for granted. Or, I know this may not feel fair, but it comes from a place of care, not preference. And if you feel unsure about what's right, ask. Ask your children how they feel. You might be surprised. Some may not want money at all. Some may want fairness more than anything. Some may be carrying quiet wounds you never knew existed. Because here's the thing. Most children don't need your wealth. They need your witness. They need to know that their sacrifices were seen. That their loyalty meant something. That even if they weren't perfect, they were still loved. And if you're the child who was left out, if you've stood in a room while others received, and you were handed only silence, let me say this to you directly. You are not defined by an inheritance. You are not worthless because you were given less. You don't have to carry the hurt as proof that you deserved more. You can let go. You can choose your own worth measured not in property, but in presence. Not in wealth, but in wisdom. And if you're still grieving the loss of recognition, speak. Say the thing that was never said. Not with blame, but with clarity. I wish you had seen me. I was there. I mattered. The legacy we leave behind is not in what we give. It's in what we express. So as you consider the end of your life, your estate, your belongings, your final words, ask yourself, what story will this tell? And will the people I love feel loved, not just remembered? In the next message, we'll turn our focus to the inner child, the part of every adult that still aches for fairness, still waits for apology, still longs to be chosen. But before we move forward, I ask you, what will your final gesture say? And is there still time to say something more? 5. The inner child that never stopped waiting. There's a moment, quiet and unspoken, that lives in many adults well into their 60s, 70s, even 80s. It's the memory of standing in the hallway, waiting for a parent to say, "I'm proud of you." Or sitting at the dinner table, hoping to be asked, "How was your day?" Or walking away from an argument, aching to hear, "I see your heart," not just your mistakes. And when those words never come, something inside us freezes. You may grow up. You may build a life. Raise children. Retire. But that little child, the one who longed to be chosen, never disappears. They just grow quieter, more guarded, more resolved to not need anyone. Let me tell you about a man named Arthur. Arthur was 69 when he told me, "I think I'm still waiting for my father to say he loved me." His father had passed 20 years before. Arthur was successful by every measure. A decorated Navy veteran. 3 grown children. A lovely home near the coast. But his voice broke when he spoke of his father. He always loved my brother more. Always. Said he was more like him. Taught him to fish. Took him on road trips. With me, it was just silence and chores. Arthur had spent his entire life trying to earn something that was never offered freely approval. He joined the Navy to make his father proud. He worked overtime to prove he could be dependable. Even in his retirement, he found himself fixing things: broken fences, plumbing, the neighbor's leaky roof, because somewhere deep inside, he believed that usefulness would finally buy him the love he never received. But the love never came. His father passed with no apology, no letter, no moment of reckoning. And Arthur, at nearly 70, still felt like that little boy waiting on the porch for a ride that never arrived. This is what favoritism does. It doesn't just impact how we relate to our siblings or how we feel about our parents. It shapes how we see ourselves. We carry that lens into every relationship. Some overachieve, trying to earn what should have been unconditional. Others underachieve, believing they were never enough anyway. Some avoid closeness, convinced they'll only be rejected. Others cling too tightly, terrified of being forgotten again. And the tragedy is this: most of these adults don't even realize what's driving their pain. They think it's their marriage, their boss, their kids not calling. But underneath it all, it's the ache of being unseen by the first people who are supposed to see them. If this speaks to you, if you're nodding quietly, perhaps with tears in your eyes, know that you are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply human. And your heart has been waiting a long time for acknowledgement. But here's the good news. Healing doesn't require your parents to return. It doesn't depend on them realizing what they did. It begins the moment you realize what you needed and offer it to yourself. Say the words you long to hear. I was enough. I didn't deserve to be overlooked. I mattered even when no one said it out loud. And if you are a parent or a grandparent now, you hold a sacred opportunity. Because sometimes, the best way to heal your own inner child is to break the pattern for the next generation. Tell your children what you were never told. Listen to them when your own parents stayed silent. Apologize for mistakes your mother or father never would have admitted. And most of all, see them. Fully. Deeply. Without condition. Because healing doesn't always happen backward. Sometimes, it flows forward. You may never get the apology you deserve. But you can become the apology someone else has been waiting for. So ask yourself now, gently, what part of me is still waiting? What would it mean to stop waiting and begin healing? In the next message, we'll explore the cost of silence in families and why many people regret the things they didn't say far more than the things they did. But for now, let this truth settle in. You were always worthy of love, even when it wasn't offered, even when it was given to someone else instead. You are still worthy now. 6. The silence that separates us. There are two kinds of silence in a family. One feels warm, comfortable, like two people sitting on the porch at sunset, not needing words to feel close. The other feels heavy, cold, like a room where something important was never said and now it's too late. That second kind of silence, the one filled with things left unspoken, that's the silence that builds walls. And in families marked by favoritism, silence often becomes the only language left. Let me tell you the story of Claire. Claire was 62 when she realized she hadn't spoken to her brother in over 19 years. Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal, but because, one day, the silence just started and never stopped. Their parents had always favored her brother, David. He was the golden boy, Claire said. Smart, charming, got into trouble but always forgiven. Claire, meanwhile, was the fixer. She cleaned up his messes, helped pay off his debts, took care of their aging parents when David forgot birthdays and ignored doctor's appointments. At their mother's funeral, David gave a moving speech. Everyone praised him. Claire, who had been there every day for their mother's final years, wasn't even mentioned. She went home, closed her front door, and never called him again. Not out of hatred, but out of quiet despair. She didn't yell, didn't write an angry letter, didn't demand acknowledgement. She simply stopped, hoping. That's what silence often is. Not rage, but resignation. The heart still cares, but it no longer believes it will be heard. And here's the heartbreaking truth. Many parents, siblings, And even spouses go to their graves never realizing that the silence between them wasn't peace. It was pain with no words. Why do we do this? Why do we stay silent when we should speak? Because speaking is vulnerable. Because we were taught, somewhere along the way, that keeping the peace matters more than telling the truth. Because we fear that if we finally say, "You hurt me," the other person will dismiss it or worse, deny it. But here's what I've seen in my years working with families. The silence always speaks louder than the words we fear. It says, "I don't trust you with my pain." It's easier to shut down than to try again. I've already given up. And yet, so often, the person on the other side of the silence is just as lost, just as confused, just as unsure how to reach back. I've seen 80-year-old brothers reunited after 4 decades. One whispered, "I thought you hated me." The other replied, "No. I thought you didn't care." Both were wrong. Both were waiting. You see, when we carry the weight of favoritism, or betrayal, or neglect, our silence feels justified. It feels safer than confrontation, cleaner than conflict. But in truth, silence doesn't protect us. It isolates us. And as we grow older, the regret that most people name is not what they said but what they didn't say. They regret not picking up the phone, not writing the letter, not asking, "Can we talk?" And so I ask you, with tenderness, is there someone in your life who you haven't spoken to? Not because you don't love them, but because the pain became too much to carry out loud? If so, consider this. What would it cost to say the first word? Not a full apology, not a detailed explanation, just a whisper, "I've missed you." Or, "Can we talk about what happened?" I'm not saying it will be easy. I'm not saying they'll respond the way you hope. But I am saying this. The cost of staying silent is often far greater than the risk of speaking. Because every time we stay silent, the story remains frozen. But when we speak, even shakily, the story can begin again. If you're a parent who senses distance from a child, don't wait for them to explain. Reach out. If you're the child who walked away years ago, don't let pride keep you prisoner. Tell the truth. I was hurt. I needed more. I still care. And if you're somewhere in between feeling misunderstood, but also missing the sound of their voice, know that you're not alone. You're not too old. It's not too late. And your voice still matters. In the next message, we'll look at the true meaning of fairness not just in gifts or attention, but in how we honor each person's story, effort, and humanity. But for now, reflect gently. Is your silence saying something that your heart longs to put into words? 7. The true meaning of fairness. We often hear people say, "I love all my children equally," and perhaps they mean it. But love, like sunlight, is only felt when it reaches the skin. No matter how much warmth you hold inside, if it doesn't shine in someone's direction, they will still feel cold. In my work, I've sat with countless parents aged 70, 80, even 90 who believed with all their heart that they had been fair. And yet, one by one, their children had drifted away. Not because they weren't loved, but because they weren't seen. Here's what I've learned. Fairness isn't about sameness. It's about presence. It's about attention. It's about giving each person what they uniquely need, not what's convenient or conventional. Let me share with you the story of Eleanor and her 3 children. Eleanor was a retired schoolteacher who prided herself on her discipline, her structure, and her sense of justice. "All 3 of my children got the same allowance," she told me. "The same number of birthday gifts. The same college fund. Everything equal." But over time, those 3 children grew apart. They rarely called. They spoke politely at holidays, but nothing more. It wasn't until Eleanor was hospitalized with pneumonia that the truth came out. Her oldest son, Mark, said, "You gave us the same things, Mom, but not the same love." "What do you mean?" she asked, stunned. "You were always harder on me. You called me the strong one, so you never comforted me. You celebrated Laura's every painting, but never came to my games. And when Ben struggled with school, you coddled him because he was the sensitive one. But when I cried, you told me to toughen up." Eleanor was silent. In her mind, she had done everything by the book. No favorites. No special treatment. But what she hadn't done was see her children. She had divided resources, but not compassion. She had offered structure, but not softness. She had been fair in numbers, but unequal in presence. This is the quiet danger of treating everyone the same. It often becomes a form of emotional blindness, because fairness doesn't mean giving everyone the same shoes. It means giving each person a pair that fits. The child who carries your groceries and your grief may not need more money, but they need your gratitude. The child who struggles may not need more praise, but they need your patience. The child who seems strong may not ask for anything, but they need your tenderness. And fairness also means humility. The humility to say, I may have misunderstood you, or I thought I was being fair, but I see now that I missed some things. That kind of humility, especially in later life, is not weakness. It is wisdom. Because when you reach the final chapters of your life, what will matter most are not the numbers in your will, but the memories in your children's hearts. Did they feel accepted? Did they feel appreciated? Did they feel like they could be fully themselves in your presence? And if the answer is no, then the most powerful thing you can do now is to open that door again. You are never too old to say, I see you now. I'm sorry I didn't before. I love you, not for what you do, but for who you are. If you are watching this and reflecting on your own parents, perhaps they're gone, or perhaps the words never came. Know this. You don't have to carry their silence forever. You can become the kind of parent, or grandparent, or elder that others feel safe around. You can say the things you needed to hear. You can listen in the way you once longed for. And if you're the one who was favored, this message is for you too. You are not to blame, but you are responsible for not becoming blind to the pain around you. Lift your siblings. Share your space. And choose humility over entitlement. Because what heals families is not equality in things, but equity in love. So ask yourself now, is there someone in my family who still feels forgotten? Not because I didn't love them, but because I didn't show it in the way they needed? You still have time. Time to notice. Time to soften. Time to speak. And that may be the most sacred gift you leave behind. You've just walked with me through 7 emotional messages, each one a mirror, perhaps reflecting something you've carried quietly for years. We've talked about the hidden wounds of unequal love, the invisible distance between siblings, the painful divide among grandchildren, the tangled messages inside wills and inheritance, the ache of the inner child, the long silence between people who still care, and finally what it truly means to be fair. Now I ask you, which message spoke to you most? Which one stirred something inside? If even one line made you pause, if even one story reminded you of someone you love, then I invite you to take a gentle next step. Subscribe to this channel. Watch more of our videos. Reflect with us. Heal with us. And if you feel called, share your story in the comments. You never know who might be reading, who might feel less alone, because of your words. Let's build a space where honesty is met with kindness, where aging isn't about retreating, but awakening, and where family flawed, complicated, beautiful family can still find its way home. Thank you for listening. May your days ahead be filled with clarity, compassion, and connection. And above all, may your heart remain open soft, even after all it's endured. Wishing you peace, healing, and a quiet kind of joy.